Heaven does not pause for everyone, but today it paused for you. Right now, in this very second, while the world keeps spinning and billions of lives keep moving forward, eternity leaned down and whispered your name. Not the name the world gave you, not the name that has been spoken over you in moments of disappointment or dismissal, but the name written before the foundations of the earth were laid, the name that only God knows in full, the name that carries within it every promise, every assignment, every destination He has been preparing for you since before you drew your first breath. You did not stumble upon this message. Let that settle into your spirit for a moment. In a world flooded with content, drowning in noise, and saturated with voices all competing for your attention, something inside of you paused. Something in you stopped scrolling. Something deeper than curiosity. Something ancient and knowing. Something that has been speaking to you in the quiet hours of the night and in the hollow spaces of your most ordinary days. Something led you here. That something is not coincidence. That something has a name, and His name is God. Chosen one, you are not here by accident. You are not here because of an algorithm, because of a random suggestion, or because of an idle moment. You are here because the God who set the stars in their courses, who breathed life into dust, and called it man, who split seas and moved mountains and raised the dead. That God, the God of the impossible, has something to say to you today. And what He has to say is not a general announcement. It is not a broadcast to the crowd. It is a personal word, a direct message from the throne room of heaven, delivered through this moment, through this voice, through this very breath you are drawing right now as you receive it. You have felt it, haven't you? There has been a stirring in your spirit that you cannot quite explain, a restlessness that has followed you through your routines, sat beside you in your most familiar spaces, and refused to be quieted no matter how hard you tried to silence it. You have felt it in the middle of conversations when your mind suddenly drifted somewhere else entirely, somewhere beyond what was in front of you, somewhere that felt more real than the room you were standing in. You have felt it in the early hours before the sun rises, when the world is still and your heart is anything but that feeling, that persistent, insistent, unrelenting pull in your spirit. It is not anxiety. It is not restlessness born of fear. It is the voice of heaven calling you toward something you have not yet seen, but were always meant to reach. You are a chosen one, and before you dismiss that or shrink from it, or wonder whether those words were truly meant for you, understand this. God does not choose based on your perfection. He does not choose based on your credentials or your track record, or the number of times you have gotten it right. He chooses based on His purpose. He chose David while David was still a shepherd boy covered in dust and sweat. He chose Esther while she was still an orphan in a foreign land. He chose Moses while Moses was still convinced he was the wrong man for the job. He does not choose you because you are fully formed. He chooses you because you are exactly what He needs for the assignment He has already written your name on. And the assignment is moving. Not metaphorically, not spiritually abstract, literally, tangibly, powerfully moving. God is repositioning you. God is shifting the coordinates of your life. God is dismantling what was and assembling what will be. And He is doing it right now, in this season, in this moment that you are living through, even when it feels like nothing is happening at all. You are not an ordinary soul moving through an ordinary life. You are a carrier. You carry something in your spirit that the world desperately needs and cannot manufacture on its own. You carry light in places that have forgotten what light looks like. You carry peace that surpasses understanding in rooms where confusion has taken up residence. You carry a frequency, a divine signal that heaven has been broadcasting through your very existence, and the enemy has been working overtime to jam that signal because he knows what happens when a chosen one steps fully into their appointed place. He knows the walls come down. He knows the captives go free. He knows the atmosphere shifts, and he has spent years convincing you that you are too small, too broken, too late, too ordinary to be the one God uses. But heaven is correcting that lie today. You are not too small. You are not too broken. You are not too late. You are exactly on time, because God does not operate on your calendar. He operates on an eternal timeline where every delay was a divine setup, every detour was a strategic repositioning, and every closed door was a redirection towards something so much greater than what you were asking for. You have carried questions for a long time. Questions about why things have not moved faster. Questions about why the people around you seem to be advancing while you feel like you have been standing in the same place, circling the same mountain, repeating the same prayers, and yet the breakthrough you have been believing for seems to stay just beyond the reach of your outstretched hand. Those questions are valid. God does not dismiss them. The very act of asking means you still believe there is an answer, and there always has been. The answer is not that you were forgotten. The answer is not that your prayers went unheard. The answer is that God was building something behind the scenes that your eyes were not yet ready to see. He was constructing the infrastructure of your next chapter while you were still living in the final pages of the last one. He was preparing the land before planting the seed. He was establishing the foundation before raising the walls. And what God builds does not crumble. What God constructs does not collapse under the weight of the enemy's attacks. What God ordains does not require your manipulation or your striving or your desperate attempts to make it happen in your own strength. You are a chosen one living in the most critical hour of your divine assignment. The restlessness you have been feeling is not a malfunction. It is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that something is about to go incredibly right. It is the spiritual equivalent of a plane taxiing down the runway before takeoff. The engine is loud. The motion is uncomfortable. The speed is increasing in a way that can feel terrifying if you do not understand what is happening. But it is not danger, it is departure, and departure always precedes destination. Heaven pressed pause on the ordinary rhythm of your day to deliver this message specifically to you because God does not want you to miss the sign. He does not want you to be so consumed by the noise of your circumstances that you fail to hear the sound of His voice cutting through it all. He does not want the enemy to distract you with the weight of what was when you are standing on the edge of everything that will be. So hear this, chosen one. Hear it deep in the marrow of your bones. Hear it in the chambers of your heart, where God has always spoken most clearly. You are not stuck. You are not forgotten. You are not behind. You are being moved by the hand of the Most High God, by the same hand that stretched out the heavens and set the planets in their orbits, by the hand that formed you in secret and knew your name before your mother ever saw your face. That hand is on your life right now, and it is moving you towards something so extraordinary that if God showed it to you in full today, your mind would not be able to contain it. This is your moment. This is your season, and this message is the sign that your movement has already begun. Keep watching, keep listening, because what God is about to reveal in the moments that follow will only grow stronger, deeper, and more precise than anything you have heard before. If you can receive that, type 777 in the comments right now. Type it as a declaration. Type it as a response to the God who paused heaven just to speak to you today. Let your faith be louder than your fear, and let heaven see that you are ready for everything that comes next. You are still here, and that is not a small thing. In a world that rewards the distracted and celebrates the hurried, the fact that you chose to stay, that you chose to keep listening, that something in your spirit said, "This is for me," and held you in this moment, that is itself a sign. Do not rush past it. Let it mean something, because it does. From the very beginning of time, God has used movement as His primary language of elevation. Think about every man and woman in Scripture who stepped into their greatest season, and you will find the same pattern woven through every single one of their stories. Movement preceded miracle. Transition preceded transformation. The willingness to go was always the gateway to the greater. Abraham did not receive the fullness of his promise while he was still comfortable in Ur of the Chaldeans. God said, "Go," and Abraham went, and it was in the going that the covenant was established. The nations were blessed, and a legacy that spans all of human history was born. He did not know where he was going. The book of Hebrews tells us that plainly in chapter 11, verse 8. He went out, not knowing where he was going, and yet he went, because the voice of God calling you forward is always more trustworthy than the comfort of the familiar pulling you back. Joseph did not step into the palace from the comfort of his father's house. He was thrown into a pit first. He was sold into slavery. He was falsely accused. He was imprisoned. And in every single one of those movements, painful as they were, involuntary as they felt, God was repositioning him. God was moving him from the field of his brother's jealousy to the floor of Pharaoh's throne room. And not one step of that journey was wasted. Not one tear was forgotten. Not one night in that prison was outside of the sovereign hand of the God who had already written the ending of Joseph's story before the beginning had even been lived. This is what you must understand about your own season, chosen one. You were never meant to stay where you are. Not because where you are is without value, and not because the life you have built is meaningless, but because God did not design you for permanence in any earthly place. He designed you for purpose, and purpose is always moving. Purpose is always expanding. Purpose is always pressing towards something greater than what it currently contains. The life of a chosen one is not a life of settling. It is a life of continual repositioning. Every season you have lived through, even the ones that felt like setbacks, even the ones that looked from the outside like failure, every single one of them was a movement of God's hand on the compass of your life, turning you degree by degree toward the true north of your divine assignment. You may not have seen it while you were in it. Most people never do. But looking back, if you allow yourself to trace the thread of God's faithfulness through the fabric of your story, you will begin to see it. You will begin to recognize the fingerprints of a God who was never absent, never distracted, never uncertain about where He was taking you. He was always taking you somewhere. He is still taking you somewhere. And the somewhere He is taking you is beyond anything you have been able to imagine from where you are currently standing. In the book of Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 11, God speaks these words through the prophet to people who were in exile, people who had been forcibly removed from everything familiar, people who were sitting in a foreign land wondering if God had forgotten them entirely. And what does He say? He says He knows the plans He has for them. Plans for peace and not for evil. Plans to give them a future and a hope. He spoke those words not to people who were thriving, but to people who were displaced. Not to people in their season of abundance, but to people in their season of waiting. God's most powerful promises are often delivered in the middle of the most uncomfortable transitions. If you are in an uncomfortable transition right now, hear this word as your own. God knows the plans He has for you. Not vague, general, abstract plans. Specific, detailed, carefully constructed plans that account for every detour you have taken, every mistake you have made, every moment of doubt you have wrestled through. He has factored all of it in. Nothing in your history has surprised him. Nothing in your present has confused him, and nothing in your future is beyond his reach. You were never meant to stay. And the fact that staying has become increasingly difficult, the fact that the comfort you once found in familiar places has begun to feel hollow, the fact that the life you have been living no longer fits the way it once did, those are not signs of something breaking down. They are signs of something breaking open. God does not break you. He breaks open the container you have outgrown so that he can pour you into the larger vessel he has prepared. There is a restlessness in the spirit of every chosen one who is about to be moved that cannot be manufactured and cannot be suppressed. It rises in the quiet. It stirs in the night. It sits beside you in your most familiar routines and whispers that there is more, that you are more, that the life waiting for you on the other side of your obedience is more expansive, more purposeful, more alive than anything you have yet experienced. And that whisper is not your own imagination running ahead of reality. That whisper is the voice of God, inviting you into the next dimension of your calling. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to shrink to fit the expectations of people who could not see what God placed inside of you. You were never meant to quiet the call, just because the timing felt inconvenient or the path felt unclear. You were chosen before you were born for a movement that is bigger than your comfort, wider than your plans, and deeper than your understanding. And God does not need you to have it all figured out before he moves. He only needs you to be willing. If this word is landing in your spirit right now, if something inside you is saying yes, if the restlessness you have been carrying is suddenly making sense in a new way, we want you to know that you are not alone in this. This channel exists because God placed a burden on our hearts to speak to chosen ones who are in transition, who are on the edge of their next season, who need to hear a word that confirms what their spirit has already been sensing. Every message we create is built as an act of ministry, of service, of obedience to the call God placed on this work. If this video has brought value to your journey today, and you feel led to help us sustain and continue this ministry, we have placed a support link in the description below. Everything there is completely voluntary. We want to be clear about that. There is no obligation, no pressure, and no expectation. But if God moves your heart to partner with what he is doing through this channel, we receive that with deep gratitude, and we believe he will honor your generosity. And whether you are able to give or not, we want you to know this. We are grateful you are here. We are grateful you stayed. We are grateful your spirit was open enough to receive this word today. That means more to us than anything else. If this message has spoken to you, please take a moment to press the like button. It is a small act that carries real weight in helping this word reach other chosen ones who need to hear it just as much as you did. Share this video with someone in your circle who is in transition, who is feeling that same restlessness, who needs to be reminded that God has not forgotten them and that their movement is closer than it appears. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please do so now, because what is coming in the messages ahead will build on everything God is saying to you in this moment. And you do not want to miss a single word. Comment the number 444 below right now if you believe God is positioning you for your next season. Let that number be your declaration that you trust the process, you trust the God behind the process, and you are ready to move when he says move. You have waited long enough to hear this, and God has waited long enough to say it through a voice that will reach you exactly where you are standing right now. There is a sign, one sign above all others, one unmistakable marker that appears in the life of every chosen one whom God is preparing to move, to reposition, to elevate, and to deploy into the fullness of their divine assignment. And it is not a dramatic vision in the night sky. It is not a thunderclap from heaven or a letter written in fire across your wall. It is something far more intimate than that. Something that has been living inside your own experience, hiding in plain sight, speaking to you in a language you were not yet fluent enough to read. Until now, the number one sign that God is about to move you is this: the place where you are can no longer contain who you are becoming. Let that land. Do not rush past it. Read it again in your spirit, slowly, carefully, the way you would read a letter that has traveled a very long distance to reach you, because that is exactly what this is. The place where you are, whether that is a physical location, a relationship, a career, a season of life, a mindset, a community, a version of yourself. That place can no longer contain who you are becoming. And when a container can no longer hold what is growing inside of it, something has to give. Either the growth stops or the container expands. And God, in His infinite wisdom and His fierce love for you, has already decided. The growth does not stop. You do not shrink. The container gives way. This is the sign. And you have been living inside of it. You've been feeling it press against the walls of your current season, like someone who has outgrown a room they once found perfectly comfortable. The ceiling feels lower than it used to. The walls feel closer. The space that once gave you room to breathe now feels as though it is slowly, quietly, persistently tightening around you. And you have been interpreting that tightening as something wrong with you, something broken in your circumstances, something you need to fix or manage or push through with more discipline and more effort. But that is not what it is. What you have been feeling is not confinement. It is conviction. It is the holy pressure of a God who loves you too much to let you stay small. Think about a seed planted in the earth. When that seed begins to grow, the shell that once protected, it becomes the very thing that must be broken open for life to emerge. The shell is not the enemy. The shell served its purpose. It kept the seed safe through winter. It held the potential in place until the right season arrived. But when spring comes and the life inside the seed begins to stir and push and press toward the surface, the shell has to crack. And that cracking is not destruction. That cracking is the sound of destiny breaking through. You are that seed. And the cracking you have been hearing in your life, the things that are shifting and breaking loose and no longer holding together the way they once did, that is the sound of your destiny breaking through. That is the sound of God's purpose refusing to be contained by a shell that has already done its job and served its season. The Apostle Paul understood this. In the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 11, he writes that he had learned in whatever state he was in to be content. Not that contentment came naturally, not that he never wrestled with the tension between where he was and where God was calling him, but that he learned it. And the learning came through exactly the kind of transitional pressure you are experiencing right now. Paul was moved repeatedly throughout his ministry, from city to city, from prison to palace steps, from shipwreck to synagogue. And in every single movement, the one thing that remained constant was not his location, but his assignment. The assignment moved with him because the assignment was in him. Your assignment is in you too. It is not tied to your current address. It is not bound to your current title, or your current relationships, or your current level of visibility. It lives in your spirit, and wherever your spirit goes, the assignment goes with it. God is not moving your assignment. He is moving you into greater alignment with it. He is repositioning you so that the gift inside of you and the ground beneath your feet are finally in the place at the same time. There is a second dimension to this sign that most chosen ones miss because they are too focused on the discomfort of the outer circumstances to notice what is happening in the inner world. When God is preparing to move you, He does not only make the current place feel too small, He also begins to expand your vision. He begins to show you things you have never seen before. He begins to give you dreams that do not fit your current budget, your current network, your current geography, or your current capacity. He begins to place desires in your heart that feel almost embarrassing in their size, almost presumptuous in their scope, almost impossible in their demand. And you look at those desires and you look at where you currently stand, and the gap between the two feels so vast that the natural mind says it is not possible. But that gap is not evidence of impossibility. That gap is evidence of God. Because God never plants a desire in the heart of a chosen one without having already prepared the pathway to its fulfillment. He does not tease you with vision. He has no intention of bringing to pass. He does not stir hunger in your spirit only to leave you starving. What He opens your eyes to see is always a preview of what His hand is already building for you on the other side of your obedience. So let your dreams be too big for your current season. Let your vision outpace your present circumstances. Let the hunger in your spirit be so consuming that it leaves no room for the voice of doubt or the counsel of fear. Because that hunger, that expanding, pressing, insistent hunger for more of what God has promised, that is the sign. It is the sign that you are growing. It is the sign that God is moving. It is the sign that the shell is cracking and the life inside of you is pressing toward its appointed moment of emergence. You have been in a season of holy pressure, and holy pressure is not the same as oppression. Oppression comes to crush you. Holy pressure comes to shape you. Oppression wants you smaller. Holy pressure is making you larger. Oppression has no purpose beyond your destruction. Holy pressure has a very specific purpose, and that purpose is to form in you the character, the capacity, and the spiritual muscle required to carry the weight of what God is about to place in your hands. Do not despise the pressure. Do not pray it away without first asking God what it is producing in you. Because what is being produced in this season is not incidental. It is essential. It is the very thing that will keep you grounded when the elevation comes. It is the very thing that will keep you humble when the honor arrives. It is the very thing that will keep you faithful when the abundance begins to flow. God is not just moving you to a new location. He is moving you into a new version of yourself. A version that can steward the blessing without being destroyed by it. A version that can walk in the anointing without losing the intimacy. A version that can carry the crown without being crushed by its weight. The number one sign is alive in your life right now. The tightening you feel is real. The expanding vision is real. The holy pressure is real. And the God behind all of it is more real than any of it. He has not brought you to this moment of recognition to leave you suspended in the tension. He has brought you here because the movement is imminent. The repositioning is already in motion. And the next chapter of your story is not a distant dream, it is a door. And that door is closer than you think. There is something you need to stop calling an obstacle. Something you have been labeling as evidence that God has forgotten you, or that the enemy is winning, or that perhaps the promise was never really yours to begin with. You have been looking at the resistance in your life and drawing the wrong conclusion. You have been seeing the pushback and interpreting it as a stop sign when all along it was a confirmation. All along, the very resistance pressing against your forward motion has been the clearest proof that you are moving in the right direction. Resistance does not gather around ordinary things. Resistance does not organize itself against lives that pose no threat to the kingdom of darkness. The enemy is not careless with his attacks. He does not waste his energy on people who are content to stay small, who have no intention of stepping into their calling, who will never disrupt his plans with the power of a life fully surrendered to God. He reserves his most concentrated opposition for the ones who carry the most dangerous assignments. And dangerous in the language of heaven means world-changing, destiny-altering, kingdom-advancing. Light-bringing, you are dangerous, chosen one. Not in the way the world defines danger, but in the way heaven does. Your obedience is dangerous to every plan the enemy has laid in the territory God is sending you into. Your prayers are dangerous to every stronghold that has stood unchallenged in the places you have not yet reached. Your presence is dangerous to every atmosphere of despair and defeat and hopelessness that has settled like a fog over the people and the places that are waiting for you to arrive. And because you are dangerous, you have been opposed. Not because you are weak, because you are powerful. Not because you are losing, because you are about to win. Think about the life of Jesus himself. From the moment he entered the world, the enemy moved against him. Herod issued a decree. Innocent lives were taken. A family fled into the night, and yet not one of those attacks could stop what God had already ordained. Not one weapon formed against the Son of God could prosper, because the purpose of God cannot be unraveled by the plans of men or the schemes of darkness. What God has written over your life carries that same protection, not because you are equal to Jesus, but because you are covered by him. And everything that is covered by the blood of the Lamb is beyond the reach of permanent destruction. The enemy has fought you because he read your ending before you did. He saw the harvest your life would produce. He saw the souls that would be reached through your testimony, the lives that would be transformed through your obedience, the territory that would be taken through your willingness to step into the fullness of your calling. And he decided to oppose you early, to discourage you deeply, to wear you down through prolonged resistance, in the hope that you would conclude the promise was not real, and the assignment was not yours, and the calling was too costly to pursue. But you are still here. You are still listening. You are still pressing. And that persistence in the face of prolonged opposition is not stubbornness. It is anointing. It is the grace of God holding you in the fight long enough to see the tide turn. It is the faithfulness of a covenant-keeping God who promised that he who began a good work in you would be faithful to complete it. That promise is in Philippians chapter 1, verse 6. And it is not conditional on the absence of opposition. It is not voided by the presence of hardship. It stands regardless of what the enemy has thrown at you, regardless of how long the battle has lasted, regardless of how many times you have felt like quitting and had to choose one more time to get back up. Every time you got back up, heaven recorded it. Every time you chose to pray when you felt like giving up, heaven recorded it. Every time you chose to trust God's word over the evidence of your circumstances, heaven recorded it. And none of it has been forgotten. None of it has been wasted. The tears you have shed in private, the prayers you have spoken in the dark, the acts of faith you have performed when nothing in your natural environment supported the believing, all of it has been accumulating. All of it has been building. All of it has been laying the groundwork for a breakthrough that will be so undeniable, so unmistakably the hand of God, that even those who doubted you will have no explanation for it, except the grace and the power and the faithfulness of the Most High. The resistance you have faced has also been doing something else you may not have recognized. It has been revealing your strength. Every opposition you have survived has proven something to you about who you are and what you can carry. You are stronger than you believed when this season began. You are more resilient than the enemy calculated. You have a staying power that he did not account for, because that staying power does not come from your own reserves. It comes from the Spirit of God living inside of you, sustaining you, renewing you, keeping you standing when every natural force was pushing you toward the ground. The prophet Isaiah writes in chapter 40, verse 31, that those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. That word was not written for people who are comfortable. It was written for people who are exhausted, people who have been in a fight longer than they expected, people who have been waiting longer than they planned, people who need to be reminded that the strength available to them is not their own and therefore cannot run out. And that word is yours today, in this moment, in this season of resistance that has gone on longer than it should have and cost more than you anticipated. Your strength is being renewed right now. Even as you receive this word, something is being replenished in your spirit that the battle tried to drain. Something is being restored that opposition tried to steal. And as that strength returns, so does the clarity to see what the resistance was actually doing all along. Not blocking your destiny, confirming it, not stopping your movement, preparing you for it, not defeating you, developing you into the version of yourself that can walk into what God has prepared and actually sustain it. This ministry exists to deliver exactly this kind of word to chosen ones who are in the middle of the fight and need to be reminded of what the fight is for. We create these messages as an act of obedience to a God who placed on our hearts a burden for people just like you. People who are strong but tired. People who are faithful but weary. People who need a word that speaks directly to where they are standing and tells them the truth about what is happening in the spiritual realm around their lives. If this channel has been a source of strength and encouragement on your journey, and if you feel moved in your heart to help us continue and sustain this work, we have placed a support link in the description below. This ministry is carried forward through the generosity of those who believe in what God is doing through it. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps us reach more chosen ones who are fighting battles alone and need to hear that they are seen, that they are not forgotten, and that the God who called them has not changed his mind. Everything in that link is completely voluntary. There is no pressure and no obligation of any kind, but if God stirs your heart to partner with this work, we receive that with genuine gratitude, and we trust that He who sees every act of generosity will honor it in ways that go far beyond what we could ever express. And if giving is not possible for you in this season, please know this: your presence here matters. The fact that you stayed, that you listened, that you let this word reach you, that is a gift to us. And we are grateful for you more than words can adequately hold. The resistance in your life is not the end of your story. It is the confirmation of your calling, and what is coming on the other side of it will make every moment of the fight worth it. There are things in your life that God is not fixing, and you need to hear that clearly, not as a word of discouragement, but as a word of divine revelation. There are situations you have been praying over, relationships you have been trying to restore, doors you have been knocking on, environments you have been attempting to make work, versions of your life you have been holding together with every ounce of faith and effort, and determination you possess, and God has not been fixing them. Not because He cannot, not because He is unaware, not because your prayers have gone unheard or your faith has been insufficient, but because He is not fixing them. He is dismantling them. And there is a difference between something God is repairing and something God is removing. Knowing which one you are in the middle of could change everything about how you navigate this season. God is intentional about what He dismantles. He does not tear things down carelessly or without purpose. Every wall He brings down in your life is a wall that was limiting your view of what He has prepared beyond it. Every relationship He allows to fade was one that, had it remained at full strength, would have kept you anchored to a version of yourself you were never meant to stay. Every opportunity that closed, every door would that not open no matter how many times you knocked, every plan that fell apart despite your best efforts, all of it was strategic. All of it was orchestrated by a God who can see the end from the beginning and who loves you enough to close doors that lead to ceilings when He has already prepared a path that leads to open skies. Comfort zones are perhaps the most dangerous thing a chosen one can settle into. Not because comfort is sinful. God is not opposed to peace or rest or seasons of ease, but because comfort has a tendency to become an altar. And when comfort becomes an altar, you begin to worship the familiar instead of following the faithful. You begin to protect the known instead of pursuing the promised. You begin to arrange your life around the preservation of what is rather than the pursuit of what God said would be. And slowly, without even realizing it, the very things that were meant to be temporary resting places become permanent addresses. And God, in His mercy, begins to make those addresses uncomfortable. Because He loves you too much to let you live below the level of what He has written over your life. Think about the children of Israel in Egypt. Egypt was not always a place of bondage. There was a season when Egypt was a place of provision. Joseph had brought his family there during a famine, and God had used that land to sustain and multiply the people of Israel through an incredibly difficult time. But then the seasons changed. A new Pharaoh arose. The provision became enslavement. The refuge became a prison. And yet the people stayed, because even the comfort of a familiar prison can feel preferable to the uncertainty of an unknown wilderness. They had built lives in Egypt. They had established routines. They had created a version of existence that, though painful, was at least predictable. And predictability, even painful predictability, has a pull that is stronger than most people acknowledge. But God did not send Moses to improve their conditions in Egypt. He sent Moses to move them out of Egypt entirely, not to negotiate better treatment from Pharaoh, not to reform the system that was oppressing them, but to bring them out, to lead them through the wilderness toward a land that was already flowing with milk and honey, already prepared, already promised, already waiting. The problem was not that God had not provided a destination. The problem was that the destination required them to leave the only world they had ever known and trust a God they were still learning to believe. That is your story right now, chosen one. God is not trying to make Egypt more comfortable for you. He is not renovating. He has already decided to remove from your life. He is calling you out of the familiar, out of the limited, out of the comfortable bondage of a life that was never meant to be your permanent home. And the discomfort you have been feeling, the way the things that once brought you peace now bring you restlessness, the way the relationships that once felt life-giving now feel draining, the way the environments that once felt like home now feel like borrowed spaces you are only passing through. That discomfort is God's mercy at work. It is His love refusing to let you settle for less than the fullness of what He has prepared. There are toxic ties that must be broken before you can move into your next season. Not all of them are obviously toxic. Some of them are people you love deeply, people who have been part of your story for a long time, people who are genuinely good, but who are genuinely not assigned to your next chapter. The toxicity is not always in the person. Sometimes it is in the dynamic. Sometimes it is in the version of yourself that a particular relationship requires you to remain. Sometimes the most loving thing God does is create enough distance between you and someone you care about to give both of you the room to grow who He actually designed you to be, separately, in your own appointed directions. There are also spiritual limitations that God is dismantling in this season. Belief systems that have kept you from receiving the fullness of what God has promised. Mindsets inherited from your family of origin, your culture, your past experiences, your wounds that have placed invisible ceilings on what you thought was available to you. Thought patterns that have told you for years that people like you do not get to live like that, do not get to dream that big, do not get to expect that kind of favor or that level of blessing. Those limitations are not from God. They are structures that the enemy helped build in your mind during your most vulnerable seasons, and God is systematically, carefully, deliberately bringing every single one of them down. He is clearing the internal landscape at the same time. He is clearing the external one, because a new location without a new mindset produces the same old life in a different zip code. God is not just moving your body. He is moving your beliefs. He is not just changing your address. He is expanding your capacity to receive. He is not just opening new doors. He is pulling out of you the faith required to actually walk through them without turning back the moment the path ahead looks uncertain. Every ending you are currently experiencing is a necessary clearing. Every goodbye, whether spoken or simply felt, every fading, every closing, every dissolving of what once was, it is all making room. Room for the people God has already prepared, who will speak to, who you are becoming rather than who you were. Room for the opportunities that are calibrated to the anointing on your life in this new season rather than the limitations of the last one. Room for the version of yourself that has been pressing against the walls of your current container, waiting, growing, ready, and about to be released into the open space that God has been preparing all along. Do not grieve the dismantling. Do not fight the clearing. Do not try to resurrect what God has allowed to die, because sometimes the most powerful act of faith is releasing the thing you have been holding on to and trusting that what God replaces it with will be so much greater that you will one day look back and understand why the letting go was necessary. Not painless, never painless, but necessary. And in the hands of a God who wastes nothing, even the pain of releasing becomes part of the foundation of everything you are being built into. What God is moving you away from was always preparation, and what He is moving you toward has been waiting longer than you know. If everything God was moving you away from was preparation, then everything God is moving you toward is destination. And destination, in the language of heaven, is never just a place. It is never just a physical coordinate on a map or a new city or a different house or a better job title. Destination is the full convergence of your gifting, your calling, your character, and the precise moment in history that God ordained for your arrival. It is the moment when everything that was developed in the wilderness finally meets the land that was prepared to receive it. And that moment, chosen one, is closer to you right now than it has ever been before. God is moving you toward abundance, not to the shallow, fragile abundance that the world chases and that crumbles under pressure. but the deep, unshakable, covenant abundance that flows from a life fully aligned with the purpose of God. The kind of abundance that covers not just your needs, but your assignments. The kind that gives you the resources to do what God called you to do, to reach who God called you to reach, to build what God called you to build, without the constant anxiety of scarcity standing between you and your obedience. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 22 says that the blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. That is the abundance God is moving you toward. Blessing without the hidden cost, provision without the accompanying grief, increase that does not require you to compromise who you are or abandon what you believe to receive it. God is moving you toward the right relationships, the ones that were designed from before the foundation of the world to intersect with your life at exactly this moment. There are people waiting on the other side of your transition who will see you immediately, not the version of you that the past tried to reduce you to, not the version of you that was shaped by rejection and disappointment and the narrow expectations of people who could not comprehend your calling, but the real you. The full you, the you that God has been developing through every hard season and every silent year and every moment of holy pressure. These people will not need you to shrink to be accepted. They will call you higher. They will speak the language of your destiny. They will recognize in you what you have sometimes struggled to recognize in yourself. And their presence in your life will feel less like meeting someone new and more like coming home to something ancient and true. God is moving you toward your assignment in its fullest expression. Every gift you carry, every ability that feels almost too natural to be significant, every area of insight and wisdom and creative power that seems to flow out of you without effort, those are not accidents of personality. They are divine equipment. They are the tools God placed inside of you before you were born, because he already knew the specific work he was sending you to do. And in this next season, those gifts are going to find their fullest, most fruitful expression. They are going to land in soil that is prepared to receive them. They are going to produce a harvest that will exceed every expectation your natural mind has been able to generate. In the book of Ephesians, chapter 2, verse 10, the Apostle Paul writes that you are God's masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for you to do. Read that again. Prepared in advance. Before you knew what your calling was, before you had developed the skills, before you had walked through the experiences that shaped your character, God had already prepared the works. He had already arranged the divine appointments. He had already positioned the people, the resources, the open doors, the opportunities that belong to this next chapter of your life. You are not walking into an unknown future. You are walking into a prepared one. And there is a profound difference between those two things. God is also moving you toward a greater depth of intimacy with himself. This is perhaps the most important destination of all, and yet it is the one most easily overlooked when people think about breakthrough and blessing and elevation. But every chosen one who has ever walked in sustained, lasting, genuine kingdom impact will tell you the same thing. The greatest thing they gained in their transition was not the new opportunity or the expanded platform or the increased provision. The greatest thing was the nearness of God that was forged in the fire of the journey, the intimacy that can only be developed in the wilderness, the trust that can only be built through the experience of watching God show up in the moments when nothing else could. That intimacy is not incidental to your assignment. It is the source of it. It is the well from which everything else flows. And God is deepening it in you right now, through this very season that has felt so difficult and so long and so full of unanswered questions. He is answering the questions with himself. He is meeting the longing with his presence. He is filling the ache of the uncertain in between with the undeniable reality of a God who is closer than your next breath and more faithful than the rising of the morning sun. The prophetic declaration over your life in this moment is this: what is waiting for you on the other side of this transition is not merely better than what you are leaving behind. It is categorically different. It belongs to an entirely different dimension of living. It operates at a frequency your current season cannot fully sustain, and you were built for it. You were designed for it. You were chosen for it before the world began, and no delay, no opposition, no moment of doubt or discouragement or disorientation has the power to cancel what God has written. His word does not return to him void. His plans do not fail. His chosen ones do not miss their moment when they keep their hand in his and their eyes on his face. You are going somewhere extraordinary, and you are going there by the hand of an extraordinary God. This channel was built on the conviction that chosen ones in transition need a place where the word of God is spoken with clarity, with power, and with the kind of personal directness that reaches past the noise of daily life and lands exactly where it needs to land in the human spirit. Every message we produce is an act of faith and an act of service. We pour into these words because we believe they carry the potential to change the trajectory of someone's life. Someone like you, someone who needed to hear today exactly what God has been speaking in the secret place. If this message has stirred something real in your spirit, if it has confirmed what God has been whispering to you in the quiet, if it has given language to what you have been carrying without the words to express it, we want to invite you to like this video right now. That simple act helps this word travel further and reach more chosen ones who are sitting in their transition, wondering if anyone understands what they are going through and needing to hear exactly what you just heard. Share this video with someone you know who is in a season of change, someone who is feeling the tightening of a container they have outgrown, someone who needs to be reminded that what God is moving them toward is greater than anything they are leaving behind. Your act of sharing could be the divine appointment that turns someone's discouragement into declaration. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please take a moment to do that now. There is more ahead, more words, more revelation, more precise and personal messages that God has placed on our hearts to deliver to chosen ones in every season of their journey. We do not want you to miss a single one. If this ministry has brought genuine value to your life and you feel led to support the work of keeping it going, we have placed a link in the description below. Sustaining this ministry takes real resources, and every contribution from those who feel called to give helps us continue reaching people who need this word. It is completely voluntary, offered with no pressure and no expectation. But if God moves your heart, we receive your generosity with deep gratitude, and we trust Him to honor every seed sown in faith. Whether you give or simply stay and listen, you matter to this ministry, you matter to God, and where He is taking you next will be worth every step of the journey that brought you here. There is a space between where you were and where you are going that has no name on any map. It does not appear in any travel guide. It is not marked by any visible landmark or celebrated by any crowd. It is a space that most people never talk about because most people do not understand it well enough to describe it with any accuracy. And yet every chosen one who has ever moved from one dimension of their calling to the next has had to pass through it. Every patriarch, every prophet, every apostle, every ordinary man and woman whom God used in extraordinary ways walked through this same territory before they arrived at the place where their destiny fully unfolded. It is called the wilderness, and you are in it right now. The wilderness is not a punishment. Let that be the first thing you establish clearly in your spirit, so that the enemy cannot use it as a weapon against you any longer. The wilderness is not God's way of expressing displeasure with your performance or disappointment with your progress. It is not evidence that you took a wrong turn or that the promise was never really yours. The wilderness is a holy in-between. It is the transitional corridor that connects the Egypt of your past to the Canaan of your future. And the fact that you are in it is not a sign that God has forgotten you. It is a sign that He is taking you somewhere. But the wilderness is also not a place to be navigated carelessly. It is a place with its own particular dangers, its own specific temptations, its own set of tests that are designed to prepare you for the weight of what comes next. The children of Israel learned this in the hardest possible way. God brought them out of Egypt with signs and wonders and an outstretched arm. He parted the sea before them. He drowned their enemies behind them. He led them with a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. And still, in the wilderness, they struggled, they complained, they doubted. They built golden calves when God felt too distant and too slow. They said in their hearts that Egypt was better, that bondage was preferable to the uncertainty of a promise not yet fulfilled. And that struggle, as uncomfortable as it is to acknowledge, lives in every one of us. Because the wilderness has a way of making the past look better than it actually was. When you are in the in-between, when the old has ended and the new has not yet fully materialized, when you are suspended in that uncomfortable space of not quite here and not yet there, the mind begins to romanticize what was left behind. The things that were painful begin to feel manageable in memory. The prison begins to look like a home. The limitation begins to feel like safety. And the temptation to go back, to retreat to the familiar, to trade the promise for the predictable, becomes stronger than most people are willing to admit. Do not go back. That is not a gentle suggestion. It is a prophetic instruction for this moment in your life. Do not go back to the relationship God already closed. Do not go back to the version of yourself you were before this season began to strip away what was never truly you. Do not go back to the mindset that kept you small, or the environment that kept you limited, or the comfort that kept you content with less than everything God promised. Going back is not an option that leads to peace. It is an option that leads to a longer and harder wilderness, because God will simply have to begin the process again. And He will, because He loves you too much to leave you there. But why extend the journey when you are already so close to the other side? The wilderness teaches things that no comfortable season can. It teaches you what you are actually made of when the props are removed and the applause is silent and there is nothing left to sustain you except the word of God and the faithfulness of the God who spoke it. It teaches you the difference between a faith that performs well in good conditions and a faith that holds in the dark. It teaches you how to hear God's voice when it is the only voice speaking, because every other distraction has been stripped away. It teaches you a dependence that prosperity cannot produce and a gratitude that ease cannot generate. These are the lessons that will be the foundation of everything you are walking into. Jesus Himself was led by the Spirit into the wilderness. Matthew chapter 4 verse 1 tells us that plainly. He was not driven there by the enemy. He was led there by the Spirit. The Spirit of God intentionally guided the Son of God into a place of deprivation and testing, because what was waiting on the other side of that wilderness required a preparation that could only happen in that kind of stripping. After 40 days of fasting, After resisting the three great temptations of the enemy, Jesus emerged from the wilderness in the power of the Spirit. Luke chapter 4 verse 14 records it exactly that way. Not weakened, not broken, not defeated. In power. The wilderness did not diminish him. It released what was already in him at a new and greater level of authority. That is what is happening to you right now. The wilderness you are in is not diminishing you. It is releasing you. It is bringing to the surface the reserves of faith and resilience and spiritual authority that were always inside you but could not fully emerge in the comfort of the previous season. The testing is not tearing you down. It is building something in you that cannot be built any other way. Something that will be unmistakable when you emerge. Something that will cause people to look at you and recognize that you have been God-dog in a way that only the wilderness produces. How do you walk through the wilderness without losing your footing? You walk by the word, not by what you see around you. Because what you see around you in the wilderness is designed to produce discouragement, not by what you feel. Because what you feel in the wilderness is designed to produce doubt, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. This is exactly what Jesus said to the enemy when tempted to turn stones to bread. Man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. In the wilderness, the Word of God is not merely inspirational. It is nutritional. It feeds something in your spirit that the environment around you is trying to starve. And you must feed on it consistently, deliberately, and without apology, because your survival in this season is directly connected to your intake of what God has spoken. You will walk through the wilderness by maintaining your worship. Worship in the wilderness is the most powerful form of spiritual warfare available to a chosen one, because worship is the declaration that God is worthy, regardless of what your circumstances look like. It is the defiant proclamation that He is good even when life does not feel good, that He is faithful even when the evidence is not yet visible, that He is God even in the silence. And that declaration shifts the atmosphere around you. It invites the presence of God into the dry places. It opens channels of grace in the spaces where the enemy has tried to establish drought. You walk through the wilderness by refusing to walk through it alone. Not every person in your life can walk this road with you, and Section 8 will speak to that directly. But the God who led you in is the God who is walking through it with you every step of the way. His presence is not seasonal. His companionship is not conditional. He promised in the book of Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 5, that He would never leave you nor forsake you. That promise was not made for the comfortable seasons only. It was made especially for the wilderness ones. You are going to come through this. Not around it, not over it, through it. And you are going to come through it stronger, clearer, more grounded in God, more certain of your calling, more equipped for your assignment than you have ever been in your life. The wilderness is not your destination. It is your preparation. And the God who led you into it is already standing on the other side, waiting to lead you out into the fullness of everything He promised. Keep walking, chosen one. You are closer than you think. There is a grief that no one prepares you for when God begins to move you into your next season. It is not the grief of loss in the traditional sense. It is not the grief of failure or defeat or tragedy. It is something quieter than that, and in many ways more disorienting, because it arrives in the middle of what should feel like forward motion. It is the grief of separation, the ache of watching certain people, certain relationships, certain circles that once felt like home begin to grow distant, not because of a dramatic falling out or a painful confrontation, not because anyone did anything wrong, but simply because God is taking you somewhere that not everyone in your current circle is assigned to go. This is one of the most misunderstood aspects of divine transition, and it is one that the enemy uses most effectively to create confusion, guilt, and hesitation in the hearts of chosen ones who are on the verge of stepping into their next chapter. He will make you feel that the distance growing between you and certain people is a sign of your failure as a friend, your pride as a person, or your abandonment of the values that once defined you. He will dress the separation in the language of betrayal and disloyalty and selfishness. He will tell you that a truly humble person would stay connected to everyone, would maintain every relationship at full strength regardless of season, would never allow any distance to develop between themselves and those they love. But that is not truth. That is a trap. And recognizing it as a trap could be the very thing that keeps you from turning back at the threshold of your breakthrough. God is a God of divine connections. He is also a God of divine disconnections. And the disconnections He orchestrates are just as intentional, just as purposeful, and just as loving as the connections He arranges. When God separates you from someone, He is not punishing either of you. He is protecting both of you. He is giving you room to grow into what He designed you to become and giving them the same gift in return. Some separations are seasonal. The relationship does not end permanently, but it changes form, changes frequency, changes the role it plays in each person's life. And some separations are more final, not in the sense of hostility or bitterness, but in the sense of divine completion. The assignment that person carried in your story has been fulfilled. The chapter is written, and God, in His wisdom, is turning the page. Think about the relationship between Paul and Barnabas in the book of Acts. These were two men who had journeyed together, suffered together, planted churches together, and invested deeply in one another's ministry. Their partnership had borne enormous fruit for the kingdom of God. And yet in Acts chapter 15, there arose between them a sharp disagreement so significant that they parted ways. They went in separate directions, and what happened as a result? 2 mission fields were covered instead of one. The reach of the gospel doubled because 2 anointed servants of God were now moving in separate streams. What looked from the outside like a painful fracture was actually a divine multiplication. God used the separation to expand the impact. Your separations are not failures, they are expansions. The people who are falling out of step with you in this season are not falling out of your life as punishment. They are falling into their own appointed path as God simultaneously leads you into yours. And honoring that process, releasing with love what God is redirecting, is one of the highest acts of spiritual maturity a chosen one can demonstrate. There are also voices that must be silenced in this season. Not the voices of people who are bad or evil or intentionally harmful, though some of those may need to be distanced as well, but the voices of people who simply cannot see what God has shown you. People who love you genuinely but who have assigned you a ceiling based on who you were rather than who God says you are becoming. People whose counsel, however well-intentioned, consistently pulls you back toward the small and the safe and the familiar, rather than forward into the expansive and the bold and the promised. You cannot afford to let those voices have the final word over your decisions in this season. Not because those people do not matter, but because the word of God over your life must be louder than the opinion of people who cannot yet see what God has already written. Ruth understood this. When Naomi told her daughters-in-law to return to their own people, Orpah kissed her mother-in-law and went back. And there is no condemnation in that. Orpah made the reasonable choice, the logical choice, the choice that made sense to everyone watching. But Ruth clung. Ruth said, "Where you go, I will go. Where you die, I will die." And that decision to hold on to the right connection, to choose covenant over comfort, to follow even when the path ahead offered no visible guarantee, that decision led Ruth from the fields of Moab to the threshing floor of Boaz, and ultimately into the very lineage of Jesus Christ. One decision about who to stay connected to and who to release changed everything. You are making those decisions right now. In ways you may not even fully recognize yet, God is showing you who is Ruth in your story and who is Orpah. Who is called to make the journey with you, and who is called to be released with love and gratitude for the season they carried. Pay attention to those who consistently add faith to your spirit rather than subtract it. Pay attention to those who speak life over your future rather than doubt over your plans. Pay attention to those whose presence makes you more of who God designed you to be rather than less. Those are your people for this next season. Hold them close. Invest in those connections. Water those seeds. Because the relationships God is bringing into your next chapter are some of the most significant gifts He is preparing for you. And as for those you are releasing, do it with grace. Do it with gratitude. Do it with bitterness or resentment, or the need to explain yourself to people who may not yet have eyes to understand what God is doing. Simply release them into God's hands and trust that He who is ordering your steps is equally capable of ordering theirs. If this word has reached a place in your spirit that needed to be touched today, if it has given language to something you have been feeling but could not quite articulate, we want to invite you to leave a comment below right now. Just 4 words or less. Something simple, something true, something from your heart to God in response to what you have just received. You can type something like, "I release with love," or "God, I trust you," or simply, "Yes, Lord, today." Let your comment be your declaration. Let it be the moment your spirit agrees out loud with what God is already doing in your life. This ministry is built on the belief that words released with the anointing of God have the power to reach chosen ones in their most critical moments of transition. If that is what this channel has been for you, if these messages have been a consistent source of spiritual nourishment and divine encouragement on your journey, we humbly invite you to consider supporting the work that makes it possible. There is a link in the description below for those who feel led to partner with this ministry financially. Every contribution, whether large or small, helps us continue creating content that reaches people exactly when they need it most. It is entirely voluntary, offered freely, and received with sincere and deep gratitude. If giving is not possible in this season, there are still powerful ways you can support what God is doing through this channel. Press the like button on this video right now. Share it with someone in your life who is in transition, who is navigating the pain of separation, and needs to hear that what they are losing is making room for something greater. Subscribe if you have not yet done so, because every message ahead is building on what God has been speaking through this series, and you do not want to step out of the flow of what He is releasing. You are not losing people. You are gaining clarity. You are not being abandoned. You are being positioned. And the ones who are meant to walk with you into your next chapter are already being prepared, already being aligned, already being moved toward the intersection where your paths will meet, and everything will make sense in a way it never could before. The separation is not the end. It is the beginning of something far more purposeful than you have yet imagined. Everything God has spoken over your life up to this point has been building toward this moment. The revelation of the sign, the understanding of the resistance, the clarity about what is being removed and what is being prepared, the wisdom for navigating the wilderness, the discernment about who travels with you and who is released. All of it has been leading here, to the place of activation, to the moment where receiving transitions into responding, where understanding becomes obedience, where the word that was planted in your spirit begins to produce visible, tangible, measurable movement in the world around you. Because faith without action is not faith in its fullness. James chapter 2 verse 17 says it plainly. Faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. Not sleeping, not resting, dead. And God is not calling you to a dead faith in this season. He is calling you to the kind of faith that moves, the kind that speaks, the kind that takes a step before the full picture is visible and trusts that the ground will be solid beneath the foot before it lands. That is the faith of the chosen one. That is the faith that moves mountains, opens seas, brings water from rocks, and turns wilderness seasons into testimonies that echo through generations. So how do you activate your move in the Spirit? How do you align yourself with the movement that God has already set in motion on your behalf? It begins with your agreement, not a passive, vague, intellectual acknowledgement that God might be doing something somewhere in your general vicinity, but an active, specific, spoken, declared agreement between your spirit and the Word of God over your life. There is a power in declaration that the enemy fears deeply. When a chosen one opens their mouth and speaks in alignment with what God has already said, the atmosphere shifts. Spiritual reality begins to press into natural reality. What exists in the heavenly realm begins to find expression in the earthly one. Romans chapter 4, verse 17 tells us that God calls things that are not as though they were. He speaks the end from the beginning. He declares the finished work before the first brick is laid, and he invites his chosen ones to partner with him in that same kind of prophetic declaration. Not as a magic formula or a manipulative technique, but as an act of covenant alignment. When you declare what God has said, you are not trying to convince God of anything. You are positioning yourself to receive what he has already prepared. You are tuning the frequency of your spirit to match the frequency of heaven. And when those two frequencies align, things begin to happen that cannot be explained by any natural logic. Begin declaring your movement, not when you feel like it, not when the circumstances suggest it is reasonable now, in the middle of the wilderness, in the middle of the resistance, in the middle of the separation and the uncertainty and the holy pressure of this transitional season. Declare that God is moving you. Declare that your next chapter is prepared. Declare that every door he has ordained to open for you cannot be shut by any human hand or demonic strategy. Declare that the people, the resources, the opportunities, and the divine appointments of your next season are already in motion, already being aligned, already being positioned for the moment of your arrival. The second element of activation is surrender. And this is perhaps the most counterintuitive step for people who have been in a long season of warfare and waiting, because surrender sounds like giving up. It sounds like defeat. It sounds like the opposite of the fighting spirit that has kept you standing through every wave of opposition. But spiritual surrender is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength available to a human being. It is the decision to release your grip on your own plan, your own timeline, your own carefully constructed ideas about how the transition should look and when it should arrive and what form it should take, and to place all of it into the hands of a God who can see infinitely more than you can from where you are standing. Abraham demonstrated this at Mount Moriah. He climbed that mountain with his son Isaac, the very son through whom the promise was supposed to be fulfilled, and he laid him on the altar. He surrendered the promise back to the promise giver. And in that act of radical, costly, trembling surrender, he discovered something about God that he could not have known any other way. He discovered that God is Jehovah Jireh, the God who provides, the God who sees ahead to the ram in the thicket before you. Have even begun to feel the absence of what you thought you needed. Surrender does not cost you the promise. Surrender is what releases the promise from your tight human grip into the limitless ability of a God who knows exactly how to bring it to pass. The third element of activation is obedience in the small things. This is where many chosen ones stumble. Not because they are unwilling to obey God in the grand, dramatic moments of calling, but because they underestimate the weight that God places on the quiet, daily, unsexy acts of faithfulness in the ordinary. Luke chapter 16 verse 10 says that whoever is faithful in a very little thing is also faithful in much. God watches how you handle the small before he releases the large. He watches how you steward the current before he expands the capacity. He watches how you honor the present assignment before he promotes you to the next one. What is God asking you to do right now that feels too small to matter? What is the quiet instruction that has been sitting in your spirit? Not the dramatic burning bush moment, but the gentle, consistent nudge towards something specific. Perhaps it is to pray more consistently. Perhaps it is to have a conversation you have been avoiding. Perhaps it is to begin the thing you have been waiting for better conditions to start. Perhaps it is to forgive someone whose offense has been blocking the flow of grace in your spirit. Whatever that small thing is, do it. Do it today. Do it not because it feels significant, but because obedience in the small is the door through which the large enters. The fourth element of activation is expectation. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 1 defines faith as the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Substance, evidence. These are not passive words. They describe something tangible, something real, something that has weight and presence even before it manifests in the natural. To activate your move in the spirit, you must cultivate a posture of active expectation. Not wishful thinking, not desperate hoping, but settled, grounded, confident expectation that is rooted in the character of a God who cannot lie and cannot fail. Begin to prepare for what you are believing for before it arrives. Begin to make room. Begin to create space in your life, in your schedule, with thinking, in your daily rhythms for the reality that God is bringing. When Elijah prayed for rain in 1 Kings chapter 18, he sent his servant to look toward the sea 7 times before a single cloud appeared. But he had already told Ahab to prepare his chariot because there was a sound of abundance of rain. He heard it in the spirit before a single drop had fallen from the sky. He prepared for the rain while the sky was still clear. That is the posture of activated faith. That is what it looks like to align yourself with what God has already set in motion. Pray with new specificity in this season. Do not bring God vague requests and general desires. Bring him the specific vision he has placed in your heart and ask him with precision to bring it to pass. He is not overwhelmed by the details of your request. He is delighted by the faith that believes he cares about every one of them. Specificity in prayer is not presumption. It is intimacy. It is the language of a child who knows their father well enough to ask for exactly what they need. Finally, activate your move by serving where you are right now. Do not wait until you arrive at your destination to begin operating in your calling. Do not put your gifts on hold until the circumstances are more suitable, the platform is more visible, or the audience is more significant. Every place you currently occupy is a mission field. Every person currently in your sphere is someone God placed there intentionally. Serve them well. Love them fully. Pour out what God has poured into you. without holding back, because the seed you sow in this wilderness season will produce a harvest that you will eat from in the promised land. Your movement is already activated in the Spirit. Now walk like it. You are already there in the Spirit. Let that truth settle into the deepest part of who you are before another word is spoken. Not almost there. Not on your way there with a long road still ahead. Already there. In the realm where God operates, in the dimension where His decrees are written and His promises are established and His purposes are sealed, you have already arrived. The you that God sees right now is not the you still standing in the wilderness. It is not the you still carrying the weight of the transition. It is not the you still waiting for the confirmation that what He said is real. The you God sees is the you that is already walking in the fullness of everything He ordained before the foundation of the world was laid. This is not wishful thinking. This is not motivational language designed to make you feel better about a situation that has not yet changed. This is the operating reality of a God who exists outside of time, who speaks the end from the beginning, who called Abraham the father of many nations before Abraham had a single child to his name. When God makes a declaration over your life, He makes it from the vantage point of its completion. He does not declare what He hopes will happen. He declares what He has already finished in the eternal realm and is now bringing into visible expression in the natural one. And His declaration over you is this: you are chosen, you are moved, you are positioned, you are there. Think about what it means to truly internalize that reality. Not just to hear it and nod and move on, but to let it restructure the way you carry yourself through every remaining day of this transitional season. If you are already there in the Spirit, then the wilderness you are walking through is not a place of question marks. It is a place of preparation for a destination that is already confirmed. The opposition you are facing is not a threat to an uncertain outcome. It is a last-ditch effort by an enemy who knows that a confirmed outcome is about to become a visible one. The separation you are navigating is not evidence of loss. It is the strategic clearing of a path toward a future that is already written with your name on it. Every chosen one throughout all of Scripture who stepped into their appointed destiny did so by first receiving it in the Spirit before it materialized in the natural. Gideon was called a mighty man of valor by the angel of the Lord while he was still hiding in a winepress threshing wheat in fear. God called him what he already was in the Spirit, not what he appeared to be in the natural. And that declaration changed everything. It changed how Gideon began to see himself. It changed what he was willing to attempt. It changed the trajectory of an entire nation, because one man received a word about who God had already made him to be and chose to walk into it rather than shrink back from it. That word is yours today. God is calling you what you already are in the Spirit. He is declaring over you not the version of yourself shaped by your past wounds and your present circumstances and your accumulated self-doubt. He is declaring the virgin that was formed in the secret place before your first breath, the virgin that carries the fullness of His purpose and His power and His anointing, the virgin that is unstoppable, not because of your own strength, but because the God who called you is the God who never fails and never changes and never abandons the work of His hands. You are unshakable. Not because your circumstances are stable, but because the God who holds you is immovable. You are unbreakable, not because you have never been broken, but because the God who gathered every broken piece of you knows exactly how to put them back together in a configuration that is stronger and more beautiful and more purposeful than the original. You are unstoppable. Not because the opposition has been light or the resistance has been small, but because the purpose of God over your life cannot be canceled by the plans of men, or the schemes of darkness, or the weight of any delay or detour that has marked your journey to this point. What you are about to walk into is not a reward for your perfection. It is a gift from a Father who chose you in your imperfection and loved you through your process, and never once looked at the messiness of your journey and reconsidered his decision to place his hand on your life. He knew everything about you before he called you. He knew every failure before he fashioned the plan. He knew every doubt before he wrote the destiny. And he called you anyway. He chose you anyway. He moved heaven and earth and the circumstances of your life to bring you to this exact moment of clarity and conviction and divine readiness. And he is not going to stop now. Your best days are not behind you. They are not even beside you in this transitional space. They are ahead, waiting, prepared, fully furnished by the hand of a God who is incapable of doing anything halfway. What he has prepared for you is complete. What he has arranged for you is perfect. What he is about to release into your life will carry the unmistakable signature of a God who specializes in the impossible and who takes the greatest pleasure in doing for his chosen one what they could never have done for themselves. Go forward with that knowledge burning in your chest. Go forward with your head lifted and your faith uncompromised and your declaration loud enough to be heard in the spiritual realm, where every force that has worked against you is already aware that their time of influence over your life is coming to an end. Go forward knowing that the same God who parted the Red Sea is parting whatever stands between you and your next chapter. Go forward knowing that the same God who raised Lazarus from the dead is raising to life every dream, every promise, every God-given vision that the enemy tried to bury. Go forward knowing that you are not walking alone, not walking in your own strength, and not walking toward an uncertain destination. You are walking with God, and when you walk with God, you always arrive. This is the word God has spoken over your life through every section of this message. From the moment heaven paused and eternity whispered your name, to this final declaration that seals everything spoken into your spirit today. You were chosen before you were born. You were designed for a purpose that this world desperately needs. You were moved by the hand of God through every season that shaped you. And you are about to step into the fullness of everything he promised in a way that will leave no room for doubt about who orchestrated it. Now, before this message closes, there is something that comes from the heart of this ministry that must be said with complete honesty and genuine transparency. This channel exists solely as an act of service to chosen ones like you. There are no sponsorships here. There is no brand partnership behind these words. And in the current season of this ministry, YouTube has removed monetization from this channel entirely. That means every video you watch here, every word that has reached your spirit through this platform has been created without any financial return from the platform itself. But the burden to keep speaking has not lifted. The call to keep reaching chosen ones in transition, to keep delivering words that meet people exactly where they are standing, has only grown stronger. So this ministry continues. Not because it is financially comfortable to do so, but because obedience does not wait for comfortable conditions. Because there are chosen ones who need this word, and God has not released us from the responsibility of delivering it. If this message has genuinely ministered to your spirit today, if something spoken here has confirmed what God has been saying to you in the quiet, if these words have carried you through a moment when you needed exactly this kind of truth, we want to invite you, with no pressure and no obligation whatsoever, to consider supporting this ministry through a donation. The link is in the description below and also in the pinned comment. Every contribution, regardless of size, goes directly toward keeping this ministry operational, toward reaching more chosen ones who are in their wilderness moment and need a word that tells them the truth about what God is doing. If God moves your heart to give, we receive it with deep gratitude and genuine prayer over your life and your own season of transition. And if giving is not possible for you right now, please know without any reservation that you are no less valued, no less prayed for by this ministry. Your presence here is a gift. Your willingness to receive this word is an honor. What you can do right now, if this message has meant something to you, is press the like button so that this word travels further and reaches more chosen ones who need it. Share this video with someone who is in transition, someone who needs to hear that God has not forgotten them and that their movement is already sealed in the Spirit. And subscribe to this channel so that every new word God releases through this ministry finds its way directly to you. You are already there in the Spirit, chosen one. Now walk like it, live like it, declare like it, and watch the God who never fails bring every word He has spoken over your life into its full and glorious manifestation. The best is not coming. It is already here. You just have to step into it.